Hakan Fidan, he was talking about Turkey severing economic ties with Israel without providing any context to nuances. Just outlandish statements in order to whip up public sentiment. And then within that same time period, you had Israeli flights moving as normal because what he said was point blank. We are going to stop Israeli ships from docking in our ports. We are going to stop Israeli airlines from flying over our airspace, and so on and so forth. And then he talked about what Israel have been doing to Gaza, this what the Palestinians have been going through over a long period of time, and on and on and on he went on with the speech. And I warned yesterday, you guys have to be careful. Turkey did exactly the same thing in March. They made the same announcement in March, and they said the same thing last year. Only for us to wake up today and see that, oh, there's context to it. The banning of Israeli flights from using their airspace refer to only certain members of the Israeli government, meaning people like Ben Gavir and Smotrich. And all of a sudden, it's easy. Those are the easy ones to target. Have you guys noticed that if the Europeans are trying to like whip up public sentiment and appeal to their base, they say, "Oh, we are trying to put pressure on Israel, so we are going to ban Ben Gavir and Smotrich," and that tells me something about them. You are going to suspend and ban Ben Gavir and Smotrich from flying over your sky. And then they said, in terms of the docking in our ports, we are going to make sure that Israel does not use our port to like refuel themselves with arms. Now let's look at this a bit. And then they went further to say that companies that are shipping to Israel will have to like swear an affidavit without any check. So even if they are going to pass there and they're carrying weapons, all they have to do is to swear that they are not carrying weapons. They just swear to an affidavit that they are not carrying weapons, and then they are allowed to pass. So what was the purpose of all those like drama show, the gambits, and everything that they were doing, to whip up public sentiment to gain some kind of support and clout? What was the purpose of that? There was no need. Just keep quiet. And Turkey was reacting emotionally to the position of Israel in relation to the Armenian genocide. That the prime minister spoke up of that he and his cabinet, that's the Israeli prime minister and his cabinet, recognized Turkey's genocide against Armenians, against Assyrians, and against Greeks, particularly the Armenian genocide in 1915. Turkey denies that it was a genocide, that this was in the context of the First World War, that they were fighting back and that they were defending themselves, just like what Israel is doing today. And in this case, Israel is the aggressor, right? So, but Israel is claiming to defend themselves, and I'm not supporting Turkey in any way, shape, or form. I'm not even saying that it's not a genocide, but it's like the pot calling the kettle black. Think about it. Think about it. Is the pot calling the kettle black? And this is the way I see it. This is the way I see it. The pot is calling the kettle black. So you go back to 1915, and Israel is saying that they recognize what Turkey did to the Armenians, the Assyrians, and the Greeks around that time period during the First World War. And Turkey is denying that it is a genocide. There's no deliberate attempt. This is what Turkey is denying. Turkey is making a claim that they don't have any intention. It was not like they woke up in the morning and decided to wipe out the Armenians and the Assyrians and the Greeks, that this was in the context of what they called the First World War. I'm not even buying that story, right? And then you have Israel calling Turkey out for what they did over 100 years ago. And then Israel gets a pass for attacking Yemen and wiping out an entire cabinet and the prime minister. Sustained campaign in Gaza for 2 years, sustained campaign in Lebanon for a year or thereabout, and an attack on Syria. And then they're talking about liberation for Syria. That, oh, they have to go and support the Druze because they love this Druze community that are minority and have been targeted and wiped out by this Islamist in power. Oh, finally you found out that the people in power are Islamists. I thought you loved them so much. I thought you did everything in your power to remove Bashar al-Assad. And Assad warned us about this. Maybe he was right. Bashar al-Assad warned us about Turkey He warned us about Jolani. He warned us about Israel. He warned us about the United States. And people running around with their emotions on their head cannot clearly see it, because if you see Sednaya prison, and that all this rhetoric that was being put out there against Assad. And I'm not saying he's a good guy in any way, shape, or form, but this is the alternative. This is what you have. Jolani and his people made a promise that within 2 weeks of taking over power in Damascus, they will be in Jerusalem. And then upon taking over power, they say, oh, well, we don't have what it takes to attack Israel. We have to be strategic. And people believe them, of course. These are Islamists. These are the true people of God, just like the Israelis are the true people of God. They can do no wrong. Nobody in the region, not the Saudis, nobody in the region is saying anything. And it's not even appearing on any major newspaper outlet. Nobody's saying anything about it. That the state of Israel have just attacked Yemen, liquidated the prime minister and an entire cabinet, wiped out. And somehow they get a pass. These guys get a pass. It doesn't make sense to me. And the US is more obsessed about denying Palestinians access to travel. They don't want them to go to. I'm talking about the leaders of the PA, Mahmoud Abbas, and 80 other people that are supposed to go to the UN Congress, the United Nations General Assembly Annual Congress, which is supposed to happen on September 9th, 2025. They are not allowed to go there because they just designated them as terrorist organizations, and that they did not condemn October 7th well enough. Yeah, this is what the United States is saying. And Marco Rubio and the State Department. What a lame excuse. What a stupid, lame excuse. These are the same guys that have, always liked, the PA. Mahmoud Abbas have done exactly what they asked him to do. He's working as an intelligence officer for the Israelis, collecting information, giving to the Israelis. The only thing he's doing in the West Bank, in Ramallah, where his power basis is collecting, designating people to remove trash from the road, to clean up the street and collect tax. That's what he has. That's absolutely everything he has, the power he has. Apart from that, the Israelis, if there's any security threat, they come to Jenin, they go to Tulkarem, they go to Kalkilia, they come to Ramallah. He has no power. He's just a puppet of Israel. And in order to stop the existence or the creation of a Palestinian state, they call all of them terrorists and deny them visa. They're not allowed to go. Their intention is not to go to Florida. They don't want to go to, the Midwest to have fun. They don't want to go to nightclubs. That's not why they are going there. They are going to the UN General Assembly meeting, annual General Assembly meeting of the United Nations General Assembly, which is supposed to happen on the 9th of September 2025, and they are not allowed to go. Why? Because America, the State Department and Marco Rubio say that they are terrorists, and the goal behind this is to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state. Full stop. That's what they are trying to do. And the fact that you guys are not seeing this, I can't help you. Enough of this rubbish already. Think about another country doing what Israel just did. Think about it. Another country doing what Israel just did, wiping out an entire cabinet of Yemen, carrying out an attack on Yemen, and murdering, wiping out an entire cabinet of Yemen because Israel is defending itself. If you have boss, they would move to the meeting in the different country. Yeah, I don't know, man. It doesn't make sense at all to me. It does not make sense. It does not make sense to me at all. Enough of this already. We've seen we've seen more than enough of what these guys are doing. And why should anybody still believe these guys in Israel? Oh, they are defending themselves. Look at what they are doing. It's the Houthis. It's the Houthim. That's what they call it. The Houthim is the Houthim. It's not the children of God. The children of God have a right to defend themselves, but the Houthis, they have to lay down there to be massacred. These are the children of God, and they can do no wrong. They can do no wrong at all because they've been ordained by God, and whatever they do is acceptable. Houthis don't share a border with Israel yet sending missiles. Well, if you look at what is going on, I think you're wrong about that because Israel have been attacking Yemen and even carried out. If you talk about the campaign that they did, the Saudis did, Israel participated in it. They were helping the Saudis to attack Yemen. And secondly, it's about the attempt to block the Bab al Mandab. They and they made it very clear that it is in solidarity with their cousins in Palestine. Israel have been carrying out atrocities there for the past year and a half or close to 2 years. So on the other hand, you can also make the argument that they are well within their right to try to put pressure on Israel. Yeah, they are well within their right to do so. But even if you don't accept that and you say, oh, well, they don't have a right to do this, do X, Y, Z, Israel is doing exactly the same thing. What do you think? They're doing exactly the same thing in Syria. It's not just about having border with people. Israel doesn't have a border with Iran, but launched an attack against Iran. Israel have no border with Iran. Do they have a border with Iran? So why did they do what they did to Iran? Make that make sense to me. Israel did what they did to Iran. So if they have a right to do what they did to Iran, why shouldn't Yemen be able to put up their own finger and defend their cousins? Because Israel attacked Syria, does Syria now have a right to wake up in the night and murder the prime minister and the entire cabinet of Israel? Think about it. The prime minister of Israel and the entire cabinet. I mean, if this is the claim you're making, is this okay if they decide to say, oh, well, you did this to us, therefore we have a right to do this to you? Because again, it cannot be a one-way traffic. You guys have this logic where you think one thing is good for us, and if it is good for us, it's good for you. You just sit down there and listen. This is what it is for you. Exactly. Nobody have like the cojones to do so. Nobody have the balls um, to challenge this nonsense that these guys are doing. Nobody has the cojones. Nobody's willing to challenge them. And why should anybody accept this nonsense? Yeah, it's total anarchy. It's total chaos. On one hand, you're saying, oh, you have to accept whatever we do. But if you do it to us, it's terrorism. How dare you do it to the Jewish people, these blessed children of God? You have no right to do it to us because we are the children of God. We've been ordained by God to do whatever we want. And you just sit down there and take the ass whooping. You are obliged to sit down there and take the ass whooping. Yeah, well, this is what they're saying, that they are the ordained children of God. Yeah, every dog has his day. You're right. Imagine taking out an entire cabinet, wiping it out completely because you don't like their faces. You say, "Oh, well, these guys are their teeth." Yeah, this definition of terrorism, which is banded around more often than not, anybody that oppose Israel and oppose America somehow is a terrorist, and only those that are, that stand shoulder to shoulder with the West and do their bidding, or is willing to be a dhimmi. Those are the only ones that will be accepted. Every other person that fall out of line should be contained, should be forced to stop. And the fact that this is not making the news on the major media outlets is baffling to me. This is the main problem, right? This is the main thing that I found out with this press. The press is being controlled, is in acquiescence to the position of the West. Israel commit atrocity, they shield them. Nobody says anything. They are shielded, they are, they yeah, it's insane. So the Yemen Houthi, and this is according to the BBC, Yemen Houthi rebel movement, Houthi movement, that itself proclaimed Prime Minister Ahmed Galeb Nasser al-Rahawi was killed in an Israeli airstrike earlier this week. The Iran-backed group said several other senior officials were killed when the Israeli Defense Forces IDF targeted Yemen's capital Sana'a on Thursday. The IDF said Rahawi and other senior Houthi officials were eliminated when Israeli fighter jets struck a gathering in the Sana'a area. The Houthis have controlled much of northwestern Yemen since 2014 after ousting the internationally recognized government from Sana'a and triggering a devastating civil war. So the internationally recognized government, they are referring to that of Abu Rabu Mansur Hadi, who's from the south of Yemen, backed by the Saudis, had little or no support in the center, fled and went to exile and lived in Saudi Arabia until he died. The guy is a self-proclaimed field marshal. The guy had no legitimacy whatsoever. The Saudis just wanted to impose him on the people of Yemen. So this idea that internationally recognized, and this is why we need to do away with these so-called international systems. The UN, the ICC, the ICJ, all of them are Muppet organizations controlled largely by the West. Why should anybody pay attention to some of these lunatic organizations that only do the bidding of the West, that only do what is good for them? Why should anybody listen to them? The UN should be scrapped with immediate effect. The UN is a Muppet, useless organization controlled largely by the West and Israel and the Jews, without little or no power, and they're only using it as a measure of control for countries in Africa. Yeah, those in Asia that have little or no power, those are the ones that are being asked to do the dirty work. Those are the ones that are being asked to do the dog work. But for the rest of us, we just have to sit down there and take the ass whooping. And the Houthis also confirmed that Rahawi had been killed alongside several Houthi ministers, though it did not name the others. Saudi Arabian news site Al Hadat reports that the Houthis foreign minister, as well as the Minister of Justice, Youth and Sports, Social Affairs and Labor, were also killed in the same attack. The office of Mahdi al-Masat, the Houthis president, said that several other ministers sustained moderate and serious injuries as a result of the strike. It added that Mohammed Ahmed Miftah, the Houthi deputy prime minister, would assume Rahawi's role. Rahawi had held this post since August 2024 and was largely seen as a figurehead of the movement instead of being part of the top decision-making circle that plans military operation. Now, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the movement's ultimate leader, as well as the group's defense minister and the chief of staff, were not said to be among the casualties on Thursday's attack. The IDF said in a statement late on Saturday that it has carried out the strike within a few hours of receiving intelligence concerning the gathering. It said it was still assessing the operation's full impact. Since the start of the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis have regularly launched missiles at Israel and targeted commercial ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, saying they are acting in solidarity with the Palestinians. Israel has in turn carried out airstrikes on targets in Houthis held part of Yemen with the stated aim of curtailing the Houthi attacks. This is what the Israelis are saying, that they want to curtail the attacks by the Houthis, blocking the Bab al Mandab. For them, how dare anybody, stand in the way of trying to stop the economic activities from progressing? How dare you do that to Israel? How dare you do that to Israel? This is what they are saying. To them, it's about the economy. The economy is very important. So how dare you? And we're not just talking about Yemen, we're talking about a sustained campaign against Lebanon and Syria. Nobody's talking about that. The people in the region that are not being affected, they don't give a shit. Jordan is falling in line. Egypt is falling in line. Saudi Arabia is falling in line. Turkey is falling in line. And recently, Turkey is making a claim, oh, we are going to you're not suspending anything. Hakan Fidan made a comment about 2 days ago, and we found out that it was filled with a lot of caveats, with little or nothing achieved with that kind of outlandish statement. After lying that, oh, we are trying to do X, Y, Z, only for us to find out that's all a lie. It's all a pack of lies. The foreign minister of Turkey, Hakan Fidan, in a statement to the parliament, stated that that Turkey is severing economic ties with Israel. What does that even mean? Severing economic ties in what sense? Meaning that they are going to sever, all sorts of economic ties. Because if you're going to put out a statement like that, we want to see what it means and to the extent which you want to follow through. So after making that statement, you have members within the diplomatic corps, of Turkey, after getting the certified true copy of whatever policy the Turkey wants to carry out, saying, well, that's not what we mean. We mean that only certain officials within the Israeli government are not allowed to travel within our airspace. And again, it might be Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, like they do. This is the way that the West, this is the new cheat code, right? If you really want to appeal to your support base to make sure that you're putting some sort of pressure on Israel, just tell them that you are banning Belazar Smotrich and Itmar Ben-Gvir. The UK is doing it, Australia is doing it, France is doing it. So that nothing about the prime minister, nothing about the government, nothing about the Israeli people. Put sanctions on the Israeli people. What about sanctions on the Israeli people? What about travel ban on every single Jewish Israeli from leaving the country? What about that? What about a complete disentanglement, a complete decoupling, economic decoupling between Turkey and Israel? This is what we want to see. Substantive action, real substantive action on the ground, and not all these epithets and outlandish statements and all these crazy statements without any substance. Because during March this year, 2025, they made the same claim. Last year, Turkey made the same claim. We are disentangling from Israel, we are cutting off economic ties, and we know for a fact that the company that is, transporting oil to Israel is, the owner of the company is a family member of Erdogan. What about Berakta, the company, the arms company producing drone and supplying some of those drones to Ukraine? The company supplying steel to Israel to make some of these Merkava tanks. It's all within the family business. Erdogan is complicit. The Turkish state is complicit. And Hakan Fidan was brought in as a foreign minister because they see him as a close confidant of the president Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He served, is the longest serving director of the MIT, which is the Turkish intelligence. A very smart guy. Is of Kurdish roots, and brought him because of the fact that Turkey's outlook and approach now want to be more of a national security approach. And what have he done since he came to office? Again, they keep pandering to Israel. Whatever goal they think they were going to achieve in Syria has not been achieved. Turkey's stated objective in Syria has not been achieved. They have ruined and destroyed the country. taking territory from Syria, while some muppets online are running around thinking it's about liberation and the freedom fighters have taken over power in Damascus. No, these guys that took over power in Damascus are clients and agents of the MIT and the Mossad. These were the guys that brought them into power. If you look at the history of people like somebody like Ahmed al Shara, he used to be a close confidant of Abu Musab al Zakawi. This is how he got into ISIS and Al Qaeda. He used to be a close confidant of Abu Musab al Zakawi. And we know the story of Zakawi with the Jordanian intelligence and the Mossad. These were the guys that started ISIS. So again, all this nonsense about, the freedom fighters are coming. Now they've removed Assad. And maybe Assad was right about most of the things he said that most of you don't agree with. Because you gave out all the story about Sednaya prison and how Assad maltreated people and what he did. And look at what is happening today to the Christians in Sueda, no, not Sueda, to the Christians in Banias and Latakia, to the Alawites on the coast. You're putting chains on their neck and making them back like dogs. And then Israel turns around and take territory from you. And Jolani said himself that within 2 weeks he will be in Jerusalem. Now he wants to just fight Hezbollah. And that Israel is thinking about sending some of his boys to go and fight against the Hashd al-Shabi. Classical, divide and rule is easy. And this is what is giving these Israelis the upper hand, because people in the region are more complicit and more interested in their stomach than actually pushing back and putting pressure on this Zionist entity. And Israel is getting away with a lot of things because of the complicity of people in the region. There's a lot of complicity. You go to Yemen and wipe out an entire cabinet and the prime minister. How is this even acceptable? It doesn't make sense. How on earth is this acceptable? Now, according to Reuters, as of 30th of August, the Prime Minister of Yemen's Houthi-run government and several other ministers were killed in an Israeli strike in the capital Sana'a. The head of the Houthi Supreme Political Council said on Saturday in the first such attack to kill senior officials. A number of others were wounded in Thursday's strike. Mahdi al-Mashat added without providing details. Israel said on Friday that the airstrike had targeted the Iran-aligned group's chief of staff, defense minister, and other senior officials, that it was verifying the outcome. Mashat's statement did not make clear whether the Houthis defense minister was among the casualties. Ahmed Galeb al-Rawi was appointed prime minister a year ago, but the de facto leader of the government was his deputy, Mohammed Miftah, who was assigned on Saturday to carry out the prime minister's duties. Rawi was seen largely as a figurehead who was not part of the inner circle of the Houthi leadership. He was an ally of the former Yemeni president Ali Abdullah Saleh, whom the Houthis ousted from Sana'a in late 2014, triggering a decade-long civil war, but later joined forces with the group. Yemen has been split between the Houthi administration in Sana'a and the Saudi-backed government in Aden since then. So basically, you have the government in the south, which they call the UN recognized government, the internationally recognized government. It's exactly the same thing they are doing in Libya, for instance, where you have the internationally recognized government in Tobruk and Tripoli, and then you have the power base in what do you call it? In the west, I think, in the west of Libya, in the east of Libya, led by renegade General Khalifa Haftar. Okay, you have the government in Tripoli, and you have the one in the east, led by Khalifa Haftar. This is where the population is lopsided. I mean, you have the population in Tripoli and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, anytime I hear the UN recognized or the internationally recognized, these are a bunch of individuals within the international system, lobbied, giving money, and they recognize anything. These are muppets. The UN is a useless organization of no use, used by the West to only control countries in Africa and weak countries around the world. And this is what the UN is useless. The United Nations is useless. It has failed to serve its purpose. It should be thrown in the dustbin for good. And there's a need for another world war for us to end this once and for all. The UN is a useless, muppet, stupid international organization used by the West to control weak countries, to control countries around the world, particularly those of them in Africa. This is why you have MONUSCO in Congo since the 60s, looting resources in Africa, looting minerals in Congo, selling African children. There's a story of a lady that I heard spoke to me directly that she was sold by UN officials to a family in Spain. They unalive their parents and sell these children. UN officials are stealing minerals in Congo. Anywhere they go to, Operation MINUSMA in Mali, which is a UN mission which was largely dictated by France, they were stealing resources and unaliving people. The UN is a useless muppet organization used by the West to achieve its goals. And this is why the UN cannot control the West. It only controls the countries in the global South. The UN must be bombed and brought to an end. It should not exist. Chaos should be allowed to reign so that people can fight for their own survival and end all this nonsense once and for all. The UN is used to control countries, to put them in line, but when America and their allies start bombing and acting like savages, nobody's stopping them. You think the UN can stop Israel? Do you think that the UN can stop France? Do you think that the UN can stop Israel or America? No, they control, they are the ones that put the UN in place to allow people to vent, to make it look like it's an open institution, an organization that, that should get some sort of acceptability. It is a muppet, useless organization that should be bombed back to the annals of history. Just like the defunct League of Nations, the UN should cease to exist immediately. Talking about the United Nations, it's a useless organization. The UN is a useless organization. Just like, I mean, look at this whole idea of intervention. The UN have, in quote, have no standing army, but in cases of intervention, the US and the Europeans are using it to manage conflicts around the world, to keep other people in check. It's like a high school gang. They're using it as a gang to keep others outside, to exclude them, to make others fall in line. It's just like NATO. They're using it as a grouping, as a society, basically, to keep other people out of line, to keep other people excluded, to keep them ostracized. So it's just like you in high school where you have a clique of boys that are moving around, and the other guy is not allowed to even, associate with them and so on. And this is what the UN is about. If he doesn't do what they want, they exclude him. This is what the UN is about. Look at the history of the International Criminal Court. Look at the prosecutions and the people that they have put in jail. How many of them are from the West? You had the Iraq War, the war in Vietnam, what Israel is doing in Gaza, and on and on and on. How many of them have been sanctioned by the International Criminal Court? It's not just the UN. Every single the supranational institutions out there, largely controlled by the West, should be dismantled, and people should leave it with immediate effect and delegitimize it. It should not be recognized. It should be, proscribed as a terrorist organization immediately, including the ICJ. It's a terrorist organization. And every single branch of the UN, it's all set up for corruption and for control. America have all this power and they need political control. This is why they're setting up all these organizations for discussion and for control. Simple and short. If the Israelis can fly plane to Yemen, murder a prime minister and the entire cabinet, and the UN is not doing anything about it. The UN is not even saying anything about it. America is now blocking the Palestinian Authority government, Mahmoud Abbas, that they claim to love, and his people from going to the UNGA meeting, which is supposed to happen on September 9, 2025. And all of this is geared towards, in my opinion, is geared towards delegitimizing any idea of a Palestinian state, because You now have some of these Muppet European countries making noise about, oh, we are now going to recognize the Palestinian state. Where have you been for the past 70 something years? Is the level of complicity, is what you have done, is the position you have taken, is the fact that you have refused to call a spade a spade. And we just sit back and watch. We have been watching and observing. For the past donkey years, you have allowed this to happen. Why should we trust you? Why should anybody believe you? The UN have served this purpose and it's of no use anymore. So you said you heard that the Houthis have been firing at Israel. Well, you have to look at the background of the story. 7 years war campaign waged on Yemen by Saudi Arabia. And who was helping the Saudis? Israel and the United States. Helping them to refuel, helping them to bomb, helping them with the maintenance of their strategic bombers and so on and so forth. And even some mercenaries and some what do you call them, advisors that are coming from Israel and from America help the Saudis in the campaign against Yemen. There are some say killed between 350,000 to 700,000 Yemenis, between 350 to 700,000. The number we can't really ascertain. So, and having looked at that, is the fact that Israel is carrying out this sustained campaign against the Palestinians in Gaza, and the Houthis are saying, in solidarity with our cousins in Gaza, we are going to stop you from using the Bab al Mandab, which is the shipping route. The Bab al Mandab goes through Yemen. So the idea that they are bombing Israel and so on and so forth, you need to understand the context. The Bab al Mandab goes through Yemen, and Yemen said we are going to make sure that Israeli vessels don't go through that Bab al Mandab. And Israel started bombing Yemen, and Yemen started hitting back. This is the background. The idea that the Jews are just sitting down in their homes and all of a sudden the Houthis started bombing them is not accurate. You have to know the history of Israel in the region, including Operation, I think, Magic Carpet or whatever. Are you familiar with that? What Israel did in the 50s or 60s? They went and kidnapped a host of Yemeni children. So the history goes back a long time that you probably don't know anything about, because as a Nigerian Christian Igbo guy, this is what you've been told by your parents, that you are somehow of Jewish descent, that the Jews are the people of God, ordained by God to do whatever they want, because God has anointed them, and anybody that bless Israel will be blessed, and for those that curse Israel, they shall be cursed. This is what you've been told growing up as a Christian in the southeast of Nigeria, that you are somehow a descendant of the Jews from the Middle East, and one day you want to go back to Jerusalem and live there to do business. This is why you are not seeing any other side to it. There's no other way you're seeing it. It's just that you have been brainwashed. You are not seeing any other side to it. You don't think the Israelis can do any wrong because these are the children of God, in your opinion, ordained by God. So they can't do anything wrong. They have been ordained by God and that they are doing the work of God. Mhm. Yeah, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. You've been, hold on. Hold, just hold on. No, just hold on. You can't finish. Hold on. You've spoken for well over 3 minutes. So there are a lot of inadequacies in your position. You said something about the 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 construct, the geopolitical construct of the Middle East. Yeah, I agree with you. It's connected by land to Africa. It's that place I would say is the northeastern part of Africa as well. Yeah, but for political reasons, they call it the Near East, Middle East or Western Asia. Now, but you said something about Yemen. Before I go to that, you said the Jews were promised Kenya. No, they were not promised Kenya. They were not. There was no attempt to give them Kenya during the second Zionist. Hold on, hold on. I didn't interrupt you. During the second Zionist convention, they they considered Uganda as an area where they wanted to give them, but for some reason it didn't happen. They also considered Madagascar and Patagonia. Patagonia is in modern day South America. So the idea that they considered Kenya is wrong. If you go to Uganda today, during that, in the lead up to the attempt to give some parts of Uganda to people you call the Jews of today from Europe, um, there were a lot of conversion that happened in Uganda, in some places in Uganda. So if you go to Uganda today, you see people that call the um, Abayudaya. So the Abayudaya are those that were converts in the 20s and the 30s. I think immediately after the Second Zionist Convention or in the lead up to the Second Zionist Convention. That is number one. Secondly, you spoke about October 7th, which is what you're referring to, which you say decapitated 200 Israelis. Where the Israelis are saying that the number is, including the number of people that died and the number of people that were taken, is north of 1,000. So again, your number there, we need to take a look at it. And then, but again, it's about causality. In philosophy, there's this concept of causality, which is cause and effect. Now, October 7th, for a lot of Israelis and for a lot of people like you from Africa and for people around the world, is the beginning, is the day that the world started. It's the day of the Big Bang Theory. Every other thing that preceded that, most people don't even know where the location of Israel is. They don't have any idea of what Palestine is, and they recognize that October 7th is the day that they knew that they were Palestinians. Some of them even say the day the terrorists attacked Israel. But what I do not know and what we will not tell you, and people like you will not articulate, is the fact that Israel has been bombing them and killing their children in the lead up to October 7th for over 70 years. For over 70 years. They were displaced during the Nakba. Are you familiar with the Nakba? No idea. Close to 1 million people were displaced from their homes in order to create the state of Israel. When these Europeans came into the land and they say, oh, the people we met here, these guys are Arabs, let's flush them out, and that happened. And subsequently, they kept taking land from them and squeezing them and pushing them out. And then again, you talk about Gaza, as if again people keep going back to October 7th and say that day is the day the war started. Uh-uh. You're talking about Gaza after 2006 or 2005, when Israel withdrew from Gush Katif. Again, I don't think you know anything about that. From Gush Katif, when they went withdraw from Gush Katif, what happened? They basically denuded the Palestinians of any single right to be able to govern that area, because they said, well, we don't accept Hamas. But what Israel was doing at that time was playing the game of playing the Palestinian Authority, the PA, against Hamas in order to prevent any sort of coercion, any sort of center, and then tell the international community, you see, these guys are not ready to have the state. And Prime Minister Netanyahu have been saying this for 20 years. It's not me. This is not propaganda. You can basically look at what Netanyahu have been saying. He said, I will make sure there's no Palestinian state. The Palestinians do not exist. It's a fake construct. I will make sure that I will be the prime minister to stop it. And if this guy, who has been part of the Boston Consulting Group since the 70s, have been saying this, am I supposed to believe him, or some random Christian in Africa that has this belief that the Jews are the children of God and whatever they do is right? And having said that, he's doing exactly. And some people are, even if you believe whatever, and again, this is all conspiratorial theories. If you believe the conspiracy theory out there, that October 7th was allowed to happen in order for Israel to have the casus belli to do what they are doing. There are some people on that camp. And even though we are saying that October 7th is a tragedy, it shouldn't have happened, it's the proportionality of the response. And even though you want to go to that extent, you speak about Yemen. You said, oh, you've been warning people that the Houthis are doing this, that the time the Israelis are going to hit them back, nobody will see. Well, well, well. Israel's history with Yemen goes back even to the 50s. Are you familiar with Operation Magic Carpet? No, you are not. What is it about? Exactly, you don't know it. Israel went to Yemen and kidnapped a lot of their babies, kidnapped a lot of children from Yemen. They have been going there and stealing babies. They have been trafficking. This is right there. Just look for Operation Magic Carpet. This is not just me spewing from my head. The history goes back in time. And what role did Israel play in the UAE Saudi Arabia campaign in Yemen that killed between 350,000 people to 700,000 people within a period of 7 years? Is Israel involved in that campaign? And what did it do to the Yemeni people? Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and they also brought in fighters from Sudan. Did Israel participate in any way, shape, or form in that attack on Yemen? Because somehow you believe that it's all about cause and effect, and the Yemenis started it and Israel is responding. This is what we've been told, even in our schools, that somehow the H cause and all the stories they tell you. You have a lot of people in Africa that don't know anything about what's going on in Cameroon, and most of them are educated about the Holocaust. They know about the only Jewish people. What did Israel do to Yemen? As we speak right now, let me finish. As we speak right now, Israel and the UAE are building military assets on Yemeni territory in the Socotra Island. You don't know that. A lot of Nigerians don't know that. There are Christians and claim to be, very lenient and very, very submissive to the Jewish position, because these are the children of God, and the Arabs, you don't like them. So anything the Jews and these Europeans tell you somehow is cogent. I don't think you're in the right place. Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? What did I just tell you 5 seconds? Hold on, hold on. What did I just tell you 5 seconds ago? Excuse me. Excuse me. What did I tell you 5 seconds ago? That did Israel participate in the Saudi UAE campaign against Yemen? Again, your own problem. This is why I'm telling you are in the wrong place, because you think it's about Muslims against Jews. This is not what it is. Yeah, but that's what you just said down. You said, what did I say? Again. Again, I don't think you've been listening to me. Again, the automatic position that a lot of these people that come on my panel from Africa, in particular Nigeria, and most of them from the southeast, is that they automatically assume a religious position. And even though they claim that they are making logical, hold on. Even though they are claiming that they are making logical, political, and cogent position, most of it is that the tilt towards Islam. They say the Arabs, like you said on the panel, the Arabs and the Muslim, what they did with the Arab slave trade, the Fulani problem in Nigeria. So they add all these dots, and that hold on. I listen to you. There's no need to get wound up, because we are not going to have. Are you willing to have a conversation like I listen to you? So they take a position, and when they take a position, you can see it from the way they speak. And but you are saying that no, it's not about religion. And then again, you're making this claim about Saudi Arabia. If you listen to me carefully, I said Saudi, UAE, Israeli campaign against Yemen, by the way, supported by the United States. What you need to understand about Saudi Arabia is that Saudi Arabia claimed to host, of course, it does host the two holiest sites in Islam. And the history with Yemen goes back a long time. Even though you say that they are Muslims, what is more important for them is there's a lot of sectarian tension in the region. So the Saudis would rather align with Israel than to align with Iran. Why? Because in Iran, you have Shia, which are the 12 fast. And again, in Yemen, in the north of Yemen, you have mostly Zaydi Shia. This is the problem, right? So it's about sectarianism. You have Zaydi Shia. The same thing with Lebanon, with Hezbollah and all their support group. You have Shia. If you go to Syria, with Assad and his people, you have the Nusayris, or what they call the um, yeah, they call them the Nusayriya, and in Iraq is the same thing. So if you look at all these fragmentations in the Middle East in that regard, it has to do with sectarianism. And Saudi Arabia is a creation of Britain. The system itself is a creation of Britain. It didn't just start today. During the Gulf War in 1991, what happened? Saudi Arabia decided to impose sanctions on Yemen, expelled over 800,000 Yemenis. Why? Because Yemen stood against American policy of going to attack Iraq during the first Gulf War. During the welcome up, during the I think it's the U.S. attack on Saddam. Most of the planes that were attacking Saddam from Iraq were flying from Saudi Arabia. Just because Saudi claimed to be a Muslim country does not. In fact, right now the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was in France during the attack on Iran and urged Israel to continue. The reason is because they have their own primordial internal tensions, and that is, it's just like, for instance, you say an Igbo from Nigeria, a Hausa from Nigeria, they'll rather accept the rule of America than to accept the rule of each other. And most of them would rather work with the outsiders to come and destroy the country than to actually sit on the same table. And this is where it's coming from in that regard. Just because it's a Muslim country, I don't see it in that way. The Saudis are on the same level with Israel when it comes to atrocities in the region. You know what the Saudis have done in Syria? What the Saudis are, again, this is the problem, right? A lot of people don't listen to me, or they don't like cutting through the noise, and they think, oh, you are here. You said I'm here. When you came up initially, you said I'm defending the Arabs, and I should look at what the Arabs did to Africans. That's not the point. My position on Saudi Arabia is exactly the same position I take on Israel. The Saudis are doing exactly the same thing Israel are doing in the region, and the UAE is doing exactly what Israel and America is doing in Africa. Case study, Sudan. And this is where I stand. For me, it is about the downtrodden, it's about the oppressed, it's about those that are using religion and ethnicity and all sorts of device to be able to bomb other people that don't have power. This is where I stand. I did. Yeah, yeah, and this is why. Hold on, and this is. Oh no, I will not allow you yet. Hold on, just hold on. And exactly what you said now is the point where you get it wrong, right? You say we in Africa should not. Excuse me. You said we in Africa should not speak on any other international issue because it's none of our business. We should wait until we are bombed, right? And you said it when hold on. And you when you came up, you said yourself that that region is Africa. And then you turn around to say now that we should allow them to kill each other and wait until it's our turn. And don't worry, it's going to be our turn very soon. And if we don't look at what is going on now and try to understand it in order to for us to understand, by the way, the West is very consistent in their position, divide and rule, claim to be the victim, attack, bomb, destroy, and change the narrative. They will do it in Africa. As we speak right now, Israel is intervening in Eritrea. Israel is intervening in Ethiopian and Somali politics. Israel is in Sudan. They have been there since 1955. So the idea that these people are living on the sky and we in Africa should just mind our business like you're claiming, these guys are our neighbors. They have attacked Egypt on 3 or 4 occasions. Egypt is in Africa. And if they attack Egypt again and take the Sinai, what is the ripple effect of that on the Red Sea? Again, we in Africa need to educate ourselves. The idea that we should just mind our business, this is the first question I get every time any African Nigerian person, particularly from your region, come up. They say, no, no, not you, but most of them come up from the southeast and even from the south, and some of them from the center. They are mostly Christian. Mind your own business. Talk about Africa. Why are you not talking about the Fulanis? Why are you not talking about Boko Haram? Hang on a second. The media in Nigeria is already doing that. Most people are already doing that. And you come to a panel where I'm interested in discussing international politics and how that relates to Africa, which is another niche. It's another point of looking at how domestic issues and regional politics in Africa pans out by looking at it from the international perspective. And they come and they try to tell me to stop talking about it. It shows me the lack of, and again, this is exactly what you're doing. Forget about them. If you forget about them, it will come. And it's already in Africa. In fact, this is just the beginning. In the next 10 years, we will be the center. Once they are done with the Middle East, which is a very small place, Africa will be the next point of call. The Russians are already here. They are already fighting over the Western Med and the Eastern Med. They are in Central Africa. The war in Sudan is about resources. We've seen what is going on in Congo. Cameroon is going to be the next to fall. And Nigeria is already facing a turmoil. We might see a breakup of Nigeria. This is just the beginning. And the idea that you should sit down in your room until they bomb Nigeria is a dog's dream.